Yes. Okay, wonderful. First, aloha, mai kako, everyone, panelists and guests. Thank you so much for gathering here today at East Hawaii Cultural Center. We are so pleased to have you with us. Okay, can you turn it up just a little bit? Is this much better?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So once again, welcome everybody. We're so glad to have you with us here at East Hawaii Cultural Center. My name is Lisa Salamine. I'm the acting executive director. Today's discussion that has been organized grows directly from our Tides Gender Beyond the Binary in Oceania exhibition that is currently here on view downstairs in the main gallery. The exhibition invites us to think about gender, not as something fixed, but as something fluid, shaped by culture, history, place, and lived experiences. Like tides themselves, these identities move, shift, and resist containment. I'd like to acknowledge our gallery director and curator, Anjay Kramars, who's sitting up there at the console. He's the curator of this exhibition, and it is with Anjay's vision and care which shaped the exhibition. So if you've not seen it yet, please, after the program, the discussion, we hope you'll be able to stop and take a look, or come in on the third day. So this panel extends our exhibition beyond the gallery walls, bringing lived experiences, cultural knowledge, and artistic practice into dialogue in ways that feel especially meaningful right now. We are grateful to Rodney, Powell, as our moderators this afternoon. And Nini will share a little bit about me. He's a licensed clinical social worker with over 25 years experience in medical and behavioral health care. And he currently serves as the Justice Systems Program Manager for the Hawaii United Healthcare Community Plan. While also, amongst many, many other roles, supports Kumukahi Health and Wellness. Ni was born in Fiji, of Tongan, Welsh, Fijian, and Samoan descent. Is that correct? Thanks. And Ni's work is deeply grounded in Pacific Island communities. He's also a practicing tattooist and mentor with a long-standing work in Tongan tattoo traditions. And Ni has collaborated with UTOPIA Hawaii to promote HIV and healthcare awareness. So with this little introduction, I'm honored to turn over the mic to me and our very, very wonderful guests that he will inform you about. And I just want to let everybody know that this discussion will be recorded and will be up on our website within the next couple of weeks, so you can pass on the discussion to your friends and acquaintances. And without further ado, I will pass on the mic to me.
Hello, thank you. All right, well, thank you. I'll try to speak very loud. I know that I have a very deep voice. So. All right, so I do have some things written before I introduce our guests. So I just wanted to share this Tongan proverb. It's taka ilalo hakam, and it means living under choreographers. Right, and my glasses on. Again, I'm 53, I can't see. And why I chose that because, well, let me just read a little bit about, so gender in Oceania is not fixed or static. It's like the tides, right? It moves, and it's shaped by histories of displacement, histories of its own ideology, acts of resistance, and yet it's continually returning, right? So this idea of gender is something that's not static or fixed. It's always coming back throughout our history. And in Tongan thought, there's wisdom in being present at the right moment and learning and moving alongside those who already know the rhythm or used to the rhythm of that tide. So today we gather at such a moment, guided by panelists whose lives, their labor, their lived experiences have carried them through shifting cultural, political, and spiritual changes. And along with those changes, that includes those tidal forces that have brought us here today. And rooted in Pacific values of family, collective responsibility, Indigenous self-determination, the panelists are not only witnesses to the change, but are choreographers of that change, and have been. And so today I'm hoping their stories will show how they have actually orchestrated a lot of where we see ourselves in Hawaii today with gender identity and the binary and understanding all of that. A lot of that came from the work that these three and many, many more who came before us, paved the way. Through art, advocacy, culture practice, and community leadership, they shaped the movements that allowed gender identities such as queer, LGBTQIA+, māhū, fa'afine, akawaine. If you haven't had a chance, there's a list of all the different terminologies downstairs as part of the exhibit that Andre and his staff have put together. It's a wonderful list. It shows just the depth of gender and sexuality that has existed in the Pacific long before any of us were around. And by carrying that ancestral knowledge forward and responding to the pressures of the present, they guide those tidal forces themselves, creating pathways for belonging, visibility, and for future generations to keep that tide flowing. All right, so with that, I'm going to introduce my first guest. So to my left, Kuʻumeaaloha Gomes is, her name means the place where love comes from. And it was given to her as Moi Inoa, or a dream name by her maternal grandmother. Kuʻumeaaloha is of Hawaiian Portuguese ancestry, born in Pu'unui, Oahu, to her Hawaiian mother, who was of pure Hawaiian ancestry from Kona, and her father, James Joaquim Gomes, a Portuguese man, was immigrated from Madeira. Kuʻumeaaloha's paternal grandfather was a luna on the sugar plantation in Kekaha, Kauai, where her dad and his brothers also worked. I'm just going to skip on this. So at 5 years old, Kuʻumeaaloha became Punahele, the chosen one, to follow her maternal grandmother, Loke Kumuhone Kanuha's footsteps as Haku Ho'oponopono, one trained to assist others with experience interrelational familial conflicts and to resolve differences. And she's a skilled practitioner of Ho'oponopono. And if you ever want to know anything about Ho'oponopono, this is, like I said, this is an opportunity today to learn from our guests and the things that they have brought with them. So at the healthy age of 80 today, Kuʻumeaaloha's advocacy work continues. She recently resigned as president of Hui Maoli Ola, a nonprofit focused on the perpetuation, preservation, and practice of Native Hawaiian healing practices such as Ho'oponopono, Nomi Nomi, Aloha, and Malama Aina. And through various programs and activities, making these available to Keiki and Opio and their families. And she currently serves as a director on the board of directors for Keola Mamo, a nonprofit mandated by the federal law as part of the extensive network of Native Hawaiian health centers. Kuʻumeaaloha is the mother of her 59-year-old son, Lawrence, and a 27-year-old daughter, Tiara Nui Moana Motu Mana Mana. I was practicing last time. And one of whom she gave birth to, and the other who came out of her heart, as she lovingly shares her experience of her Hanai relationship with Tiara Nui. Kuʻumeaaloha's partner of 19 years, Kalei Puha, a staunch advocate of same-sex marriage, died unexpectedly 6 months prior to the passage of the legislative bill that allowed for legislation of marriages for those in Hawaii of our homosexual community. Kuʻumeaaloha never married as a result of the loss of her beloved partner, though she celebrates the union of many of her LGBTQ friends. So welcome, Kuʻumeaaloha. And then next to Kuʻumeaaloha, we have Keiva Lei Cadena, And Keiva Lei is a respected Native Hawaiian transgender advocate, activist, and leader in HIV/AIDS services, widely recognized for her work in harm reduction, transgender rights, and cultural advocacy. She served on several advisory boards, including the National Native HIV Network and Positively Trans National Advisory Council, where she champions issues impacting transgender women of all color and Pacific Island communities. Keiva is also an award-winning hula practitioner, beautiful dancer, by the way, very, very beautiful, and has been a dedicated member of Keololaulani Halau'olaka for over 25 years. As a long-term survivor of HIV, she integrates her lived experience with deep cultural knowledge to challenge stigma and advance community empowerment in Hawaii and at the national level. So welcome, Keiva. And then at the very end, for those of you who don't know Tui, this is Peter Tuiolosega Silva, pronounced as Tui and Oya. Oh, you got your fan base. Tui is a CEO for Kumukahi Health and Wellness on the island of Hawaii. He has been an advocate of the māhū LGBTQIA+ community for over 30 years, which began as one of the first and also began as one of the first members of Nā Mamo of Hawaii and the UH Task Force on Sexual Orientation. Peter was the prevention director at Pacific Island HIV Training for Life Foundation for over 10 years, after which he moved back home to Hilo, where he served at the Hawaii State Department of Health as an epidemiologist. Now in his 6th year at Kumukahi, he lives with his partner of 28 years. Some of you might know him. And has a house of 9 lovely grandchildren. So welcome to me. All right, so our discussion today, I was thinking about, when Andre had asked if we could bring this panel together and talk about just the theme of this exhibition, I thought it would be a great idea to bring these three together because these three go way, way back. Before I even knew them, they knew of each other. And so I wanted to bring their collective manako together and to bring their experience together to talk about where they have seen those tidal forces and how it's changed over the years as far as gender and sexuality and some of the issues that we are still facing now, but in a different light, right? Some of it is still the same, but in a lot of ways it's changed. So what I wanted to do first, maybe start off with Kuʻumeaaloha. If you could talk about Nā Mamo Hawaii and just its origins, and I know Keiva and Tui also have some experience with that, but I'll let you go ahead and introduce that.
Mahalo, and mahalo Andre, and to the rest of you for being here. As I look around the room, I think to myself, if you were in my living room, I would ask you to get closer together so that we're kind of like as family, which is what we should be, right? And not have society divide us and put us into boxes. So those of you over there, move over. Come on, move over. And you decide, move over. Like Keiva. There's a boat. There you go. Okay, now we're feeling all cozy. Yeah. So Nā Mamo o Hawaii came about as a result of Native Hawaiians who were identified as LGBT and on Oahu. And we were concerned about two things. One was the invisibility of who we were as Native Hawaiians at that time, it was called the GLBT community. And also in the Hawaiian community as people who were gay. And I say gay because in Hawaii, we never used the terminology lesbians. It was like gay men and gay women. So you will hear that from me. So what we wanted to do was to confront the GLBT community with the fact that, number one, we got the letters mixed up and it should be lesbians first. Women first, right? Men make room for women first because society, you know, as we know, based on discrimination and oppression, always put white men first. So we wanted to reverse that. So that was one thing. The other thing was to also raise consciousness within the Hawaiian sovereignty community about the fact that we needed to have gay voices at the table, right? And to raise the issue about, not to make gay people the issue, but to make sure that everyone was represented, you know? And so those were the two primary reasons that we came together. And the folks that came together represented that spectrum of society. So we had an 18-year-old to a 50-year-old, and I was 50 at that time, so I was the oldest member. We had people who were underemployed to people who were gainfully employed and had access to health care, and those who didn't. We had people who had 7th grade educations to people who had PhD educations. And these are primarily Native Hawaiians. And then we also opened it up to allies who could support us in what we did. Now this was also around the time of the beginning of the organizing for same-sex marriage in the law. So I was a commissioner in the Commission for Same-Sex Marriage in the Law. So it was really, really wonderful having the people from Nā Mamo, Hawaii there, always sitting in the front row so I could turn off the bigotry from the testimonies and just smile at my friends over here in the front row, right? But one of the things we did, one of the primary things we started to work on was looking at privilege and to ask the question, how many of us carry privilege? Now all of us was like, no, I'm gay and whatever, I don't have privilege. Yes, we have privilege. You know, we live in a house that has doors and windows and clothes. I have a full-time job, I have so many degrees and things like that. But the need to look at that in terms of the different kinds of privilege that we carry so that we could look at how do we use that privilege to make room at the table for others who need to be there. So one of the things us as older people began to look at is like, well, yeah, we're at a discussion, the young people sitting in the back, how do we make room at this table so that they can sit here? So I get up from the table and I say to the young people in the back, come sit over here. Oh, no, auntie, that's okay, you sit over here. No, never mind. Your voice is really important. Come sit over here, you need to be heard. You know, things like that. So that we're creating the voice and visibility of those who are traditionally marginalized in society. And using that kind of language to raise consciousness. The other thing we did was we flipped that whole thing about GLBT and made it LGBT. So put the women first. Yeah. And we were talking about it today. It's like the first gay pride parade after that. The guys, the gay white men, they always put the dykes on bikes in the back of the parade. Well, we moved them to the front. And we put Nā Mamo Hawaii right after there. And the guys couldn't say nothing. It was the gay pride parade. Hello? Yeah. So it was things like that we began to do to raise consciousness, to create a community that was more inclusive, and also understanding too that we're intelligent people and that we can have dialogue, we can disagree, and we can use that kind of disagreement to build unity, right? To make ourselves open to hearing, listening, and making each other visible. So that's kind of like the work that we did. Right, Tui?
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And then also, I wanted to also acknowledge Tui and Keiva because they both were part of the Mamo in certain ways. Keiva, you had talked about being at the house when you were younger and going through your own transitional parts of your life and space. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what that, or being around in that present time visit, Kuʻumeaaloha talks about those kids in the back, and it sounded like you were maybe one of those kids in the back. So maybe just a little bit about your experience and how that helped shape you.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought a lot about everything that you just were saying, Auntie. And yeah, we Auntie Nawahini Turuwa and Auntie Kilaiki were partners. The auntie of one of my closest friends, and they lived in a guest house on this mansion. I think the guy was the owner of L&L Driving or something. But they lived in the guest house, and we would go over to that house often, all the time. And Auntie Nawahine, Auntie Kilaiki, Auntie Kuʻumeaaloha, Auntie Kalei was all there with amongst their friends, and they definitely were having intentional and intense conversations about current affairs and issues that affected community. But I remember not feeling like it was stuffy, or not feeling like it was above me, or not feeling like it was something that I couldn't understand. They made it fun. They had their glasses of wine sitting around the table and having these really intelligent conversations, and here are these gay women having these really smart conversations and dignified conversations in respectful ways. And looking back now, here we are, we probably just were smoking a joint in the driveway before we came to the house. We were definitely trying on our less than respectful drag outfits for the show we were getting ready to do that night. And our focus was the hair and the makeup and the clothes and the kanes and the street and all of these things, while our aunties were in the living room fighting for our welfare. Mahalo for that. But also never excluding us from those conversations and never making us feel like we were bad for what we were doing and what we were standing on. I think they understood. We were learning and we were writing our stories. So yeah, I think looking back now, 25 years later, I think it's a really amazing gift that you folks gave us to be in the presence of that, but also to show us how it's done, and pave that way for us to be able to, for Tui and I, and so many others in our generation, to be able to step up to the plate and fight for change and create change and fight for safety and make it easier for young māhū girls like me to move about their day, to access education, to access healthcare, and to access respect in our communities. I had no idea what the impact of their work, how that impact of their work was affecting us as a community. But as I'm older and as I'm involved in the work now, I see that we couldn't have been anywhere we are now without the efforts of those aunties sitting around that table with their red wine. Mahalo for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Keiva. Andre, if you could maybe put back the photo that was up there. So I don't know if you folks saw earlier, but these were provided to us by Kuʻumeaaloha. And this is actually from 1994. And this was an article out of the Island Lifestyle magazine. I don't know, for those of you who were around in the 90s. That you should remember, that was our access to the gay world. Yeah, so in that time, the sovereignty movement was huge, of course, and then in that also was the same-sex marriage bill that was being debated across the state, and Nā Mamo was a huge impetus in getting that bill passed. And so I want to turn it over to Tui, because Tui, you'll see he's pictured in here as well, with Kuʻumeaaloha at a tender age of 18, 19, I forget how you were.
30 pounds lighter.
And 30 pounds lighter of hair, full head of hair. So maybe just talk about your experience and how that helped shape who you are coming out of that experience.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm 5th generation of Hilo, 3rd generation of anxiety. You know, we come from a known family. This was HBD headquarters. My dad was a cop. That Catholic school, you know, was up there. I'm recovering Catholic. And so my dad kind of had an inkling of, you know, I had a touch, what do you call it, tilly? Little tilly to me. And he made it very clear, you know, no, only gay people, they dress effeminately, they dance for Mary Monarch. I don't want any of that for you. And so I was really suppressed when I lived here and faced a lot of homophobia. And so as soon as that chance came, when I graduated from St. Joe, he was like, oh, go HCC, I'll go buy you one truck. I was like, screw the truck, I'm out of here. So I went to Manoa. So Manoa, I was being living my best life. I went to the UH Gay Men's Club, which was a really strange club. It was some guy that was into Asian boys. And so I was like, what the hell is this? And then, so I ended up becoming the president after he left. And then I found my partner. He's actually from Kalapana at that time. And we just realized we didn't fit exactly into this space. We moved into the UH Task Force on Sexual Orientation, and that's how we ended up getting sexual orientation into the non-discriminatory policies for the UH system back then. And so we had done a lot of work in the LGBTQ community, but there was just something there that, you know, I felt like my experience and where I came from really wasn't a part of this current movement, right? We had ACT UP and all of those folks that were so brave then, and then we had folks that, you know, you gotta be out and out there, and, you know, for me, you know, the individual kind of comes last. I learned in my learning with my ohana. And right, there's the individual, there's the ohana, then there's the village, and then there's the government. There's so many layers that are packed onto you that I just wanted to be my individual self. But what I learned in being in these spaces was that, no, I still have a connection to my family. I have a connection to the culture of my Pacific Island heritage. And so when I met up with Kuʻumeaaloha, there was just this click there that, oh my gosh, you know, we don't exactly fit into the standard LGBTQ movement for same-sex marriage. And also for our Native Hawaiian Pacific Island community, they didn't accept us for who we were. There were still lots of levels of colonialism, of Christianity. And so we came together and we tried to find a name that would match. And it was Noinoi Silva who came up with it, was the symbol of Lehua, but actually the yellow Lehua is called Mamo, and Mamo means the multitude of people. And it also means the children of Hawaii. And so we really identified with that, and we worked internally to find out, okay, who are we, where do we fit, and how can we fit into the current gay movement of same-sex marriage, and how can we work within the Hawaiian sovereignty movement for them to understand, you know, there is place for us at the table, or there needs to be education to happen for our own people to accept us. And so I really feel that was the power of what Nā Mamo started 35 years ago. I went to St. Joe and I couldn't do math, my dad told me. I thought it was 25 or 35, hence no more hair. Thank
you, Tui. So, you know, in talking about this is that's why I'm saying, you know, it's rich to be standing next to these choreographers who have choreographed these changes that we don't even realize, and I didn't even realize it. I moved to Hawaii in 1995, not knowing all of this had been going on, and you know, I was escaping my own. Well, escaping California is what I was doing. You know, so coming to Hawaii and seeing this movement and not really being grounded in my, I grew up in my own Pacific Island culture, but that was always very separate from my identity as a bisexual man or as a gay man, whatever, you know, whatever I was going through it at that time. But once I started to hear about this movement, Nā Mamo, and what they were doing, it was really intriguing. And at that time, I ended up getting to work in HIV. This was in the 90s, 95. Nobody wanted to work with these men who were dying of HIV. So me, I'm fine, I'll do it. I got involved with working with folks who had HIV and realized there was an organization called Life Foundation that took care of folks with HIV. And those of you who worked in HIV back in the 90s or in the early 80s understood, you understand that at that time it was, you working basically to help somebody die. It wasn't to help them live life like how it is now. You were basically helping somebody transition on in their life. So working with Life Foundation, I ended up working with clients of the foundation. I ended up getting a job at Life Foundation. So from there, I kind of want to transition the conversation now into this other group that formed in the early 2000s. Actually, back in the 90s in San Francisco, the late 90s, and in the early 2000s in Hawaii. It was called UTOPIA, United Territory of Pacific Islanders Alliance. And I believe, Keiva, you were living in San Francisco at the time when UTOPIA had formed. So maybe you and Tui can talk a little bit about how UTOPIA came out, Nā Mamo, the growth what Nā Mamo had built, and maybe the direction it moved, it progressed forward to become UTOPIA. And UTOPIA now is a huge organization across the mainland, across the U.S. In different states. So, I'm trying to get folks to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks for that. First, I'm so honored that I was able to be a part of those beginning years of UTOPIA Hawaii. We were all young people. We knew each other because we were doing shows together. We were running in pageants together. We were going to Fusions and Venus together. When the opportunity to form UTOPIA Hawaii came about through Tui's work with Life Foundation's prevention department, he automatically just went to the community of folks that was, close to him, which was all of us. And so I'm to this day, I'll be forever honored that I was a part of those early years of forming UTOPIA Hawaii, because this is what it did. Before UTOPIA Hawaii, nobody in my community knew about Life Foundation. And if we did know about it, it's not something that was for us. It was uncomfortable. We didn't see ourselves when we walked through the door to get an HIV test or to get free condoms, to learn more about HIV, or to help one of our friends get connected to HIV services. It was completely out of our circle of access. Like not only was it something that we didn't know or think that we needed, but it was also something that we didn't want, and we didn't want it from them. It was a different community of LGBT folks that was a part of Life Foundation. And what UTOPIA did was it made services, education, safety, healthcare, it made it okay to talk about those things in our space. We'd be sitting around Queen Surf on top of a bunch of, lauhala mats, passing around Keiva, and I literally would have a 40 ounce in the brown bag. I'm not lying. I would literally be walking around with it. I was bad back then. I would literally be walking around with a brown bag with a 40 ounce of Mickey's beer in it at these Keivas, and nobody said, Keiva, you cannot drink over here. Nobody said, you know, when we used to go huddle down by the beach, you know, to go past the dro, nobody said, you guys cannot do that over here. It just was accepted. And all of a sudden, it was okay to be in a space with all of our friends, with our drag families, with our titas, with all of the club kids, with all of the people that we were most comfortable with. And we were able to learn more about HIV, to understand that there were services that were actually free and accessible to us, to get tested. Like, it just opened the doors to Life Foundation and all Life Foundation had to offer. It really said it was okay for us to be there, and it became part of the community. And I strongly believe that had it not been for Utopia Hawaii, places like Life Foundation, Kumukahi Health and Wellness, Maui AIDS Foundation, Malamo Puna Health Services, those places would still have been something that was not a part of us. It would have been, you know, another agency that we didn't trust, that we didn't feel like was welcoming to us and our needs, that really kind of like deigned to provide services to us rather than privileged to provide services to us. It just really changed the culture of what those kind of community-based grassroots organizations were to the community of brown māhū folks in Hawaii. And on a personal level, it bridged my relationship with the māhū community in San Francisco to my relationship with the māhū community in Hawaii. I was almost, in a way, I'm a baby of the diaspora. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, California. My mama is from Kaneohe. My father was born and raised in El Cerrito, California. And my grandparents moved my ohana to the continent in the 1960s because they thought it was going to be better opportunities for their 9 children. And what they experienced was racism and poverty, and still to this day, my family in California still experience those same things, with a lot of other hardships that come along with it, and including the disconnection to culture and the disconnection to Aina, which is what I know now to be so important for our wellness, our spiritual wellness as Hawaiians. And so what Utopia was able to do for me was I was able to live as a māhū in San Francisco rather than live as a trans woman in San Francisco. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, you'll understand what the difference of that really is. It brought culture into the San Francisco LGBT community, and made it cool and made it fun, and really connected all of these Pacifica people that were living in the Bay Area, where our only commonality was that we were LGBT and that we were from Pacific Islands. We actually got to embrace and share and empower and uplift our culture in the Bay Area. And all the while, we didn't even really know that we were learning about HIV and that we were like making it okay for trans women to talk about HIV. Because as a trans woman coming up in the 90s, we were just talking about this at the house earlier, it was very, very important to me and girls like me that we were not associated with gay men. No shade. It was really that we were trying to proclaim ourselves as the women that we saw ourselves to be. And so what that really meant for us was that if you're talking about issues that were related to gay men, I didn't want to be in that conversation. And so if you're talking about HIV in San Francisco in 1998, 1999, I definitely didn't want to be in that conversation. And it led to an HIV diagnosis for me in 2004. The fact that I refused to be knowledgeable, I refused to accept that I was at risk, I refused to accept that I should be getting tested regularly. And I refused to accept those conversations in my space. And that's what the culture of stigmatizing things like HIV can do to communities, right? It really kind of, I don't know how many straight men refuse to be knowledgeable or educated, right? I'm going on a tangent, we're talking about Utopia. But yeah, so Utopia was this amazing opportunity to not only bring community, young people, young brown Pacific Island people together, but we secretly threw in education around harm reduction and self-care and healthcare in those spaces. That was the first time I ever experienced Tafai Kava was because of Utopia. First time I ever drank kava was because of Utopia. And so many other things. It made it cool, it made it fashionable, and it made it fun. And I'm really, really happy that Utopia is coming back, is reinvigorating itself in this day and age, because like Auntie Kuʻumeaaloha was saying a little bit earlier, our young people within the māhū community today are so disconnected from culture that, and it's concerning, right? And so Utopia is able to kind of bridge all of those things together, health and wellness, cultural activities and practicing, and beliefs and practices, values and perspectives, and also HIV and harm reduction and all of the things that are really, really important to keep us safer in the world. So it's such an amazing feeling to know that I was a little part of bringing that home to these islands, but also it's so important to remember how it has helped me personally in my own health and wellness, in my own journey as a māhū living with HIV, but also as a kid from the diaspora that really needed to be connected to culture for spiritual and wellness reasons. Yeah.
Thank you, Keiva. I'm gonna sorry, Julia, let me just in the essence of time, I think Keiva brought up something that I do want to have folks here take away from this discussion is the word māhū, because we hear that more often now than before. So maybe I'll for Kuʻumeaaloha, sorry, I know you have a lot more life experience than us, so maybe if you could talk about your growing up in that word and how that word has evolved and how maybe just to enrich us in our understanding, to understand really the power in that word and where it came from and what it means today as opposed to maybe when you were younger.
Well, first of all, I don't want to leave here without acknowledging some things, and that is that the māhū community in Hawaii, we are where we are today because of them, right? Because of what they went through. And they went through some really tough stuff. Having to wear name cards that said, "I'm a boy." I mean, on the streets in Honolulu, they had to do that. And just being monitored constantly by police, right? By police officers, and they couldn't even express themselves. I mean, if not for them, we wouldn't be where we are today. And also, our gay men. And our gay men were taking hits too. I mean, they were being beaten up also, right? Transgender community, they were being beaten up, and police were doing it. I know because my brother-in-law was on the task force. And we used to have these unreal discussions. And with our gay men, they also themselves couldn't come out and just be, yeah. And us lesbian women were kind of like in the closet, you know, like taking it easy. But we could pass. I mean, we could pass for being straight. Nobody knew, you know, until we decided to like hold hands in the shopping center, and, you know, people would just kind of like walk around you know, like that, literally walk around you. Or if you were looking at clothes, you know, the clerk in the store would come and make sure that they really monitored whether you were stealing the clothes or not, you know, as if we didn't have money. But getting back to your thing about māhū, I don't know how many of you know this, but in Hawaiian culture, like Kuʻumeaaloha first had an aikane. An aikane was the word for same-sex partner. And other ali'i also had aikane, you know, same-sex partners. It was accepted in the Hawaiian community. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We had
I would have been so big-headed if I was Kamehameha's icon. Can you imagine? I would have been so gassed up.
and the thing is, he made him a co-ali'i, right? It wasn't just you were my partner, but you were a co-ali'i. You were ali'i just like me, you know? That's kind of like what ali'i did. And so that was really accepted. And the word māhū was a word that came about much later in society, because it was aikane. That was the word that was used in Hawaiian language. And māhū, like māhūi, is a really new word. And so that came about much later. But it was very, same-sex relationships were really accepted in Hawaiian community back then. And more so than they are today. Right? And that's because of Christianity. You know, when the Christians came to Hawaii, and heaven forbid, they saw half-naked people, right? I mean, you're living in a tropical climate. What do you expect? You know, women go walk around bare-breasted, of course, you know. It's hot, you know, man in their malos, and the Christians was like, you know, they couldn't stand, you know, looking probably at their own bodies. They had to clothe other people's bodies, you know, that kind of thing. But I think I'm going to stop there because I'm starting to get into the stuff. And Tui hasn't had the opportunity to talk about Utopia.
Okay, I'll turn over.
Let's see. I think with māhū, that, you know, it was a real derogatory term growing up, right? You wouldn't want to be called that. It's same as the F word, right? And then the work of Kealo Mamo, they had a group that reclaimed that term as Māhū Wahine and Māhū Kane. And so it was, you know, taking back this disparaging word and giving that power, giving that mana, and showing the world the amazing powers and humanity that Māhū had. And I think I've seen the transition of that word become more of a identity as well for those that don't fit the binary, which is what, you know, we're talking about. There's this evolution of, you know, especially when we were doing Nā Mamo and UTOPIA, you had very strict gender roles, right? You had the Kane role, you had the Wahine role, and now we have, you know, Aha Kane, Aha Wahine, and now we have Aha Māhū, which is part of the Native Hawaiian healthcare system and getting input. So it's really evolved. And so, you know, I have a hard time for myself to call myself Māhū because it really, I went through that period with Hina and Keiva reclaiming that word and that being identified. But I feel like with the younger generation, it's something that they've really, staked a claim in. I really feel that this is a term that really applies to me going between the binary of male and female, of heterosexual and homosexual, and all of those different expressions. So it's really exciting to see that. It's really exciting to see the youth claim that. It's definitely an evolution that is really powerful, and I think it really started from the work that these folks had done in the 80s, 90s, 2000s to come where we are today.
So, thank you for that. When we were talking, we all met at our house earlier just to kind of do a check-in and talk story. And Keiva, you had mentioned something really interesting that, a lot of the fluidity of gender roles and sexuality nowadays is more similar to traditional Pacific Island values or Pacific Island understanding of gender roles and sexuality. Can you talk more about what you were talking about there?
Sure. I've been a part of hula practitioning since, honestly, since before I was born. It's generational, and so it just was kind of something that naturally came into my life at birth, a kuleana of being a hula olapa. So I have the privilege of learning a lot, of having close access to information of who we are as people, historically, before contact, before any other outside influence changed our perspective and changed our lifestyles and our way of thinking. But what I do understand is that māhū was not something that was different, or it wasn't something that was out of the ordinary. It just was, and it was what it was. Again, I think that's, you said it just like that earlier. It was what it was, and there was no need to make the announcement. You know how October 11th is coming out day. There was no need for those kinds of events. There was no need to kind of explain a relationship, or there was no need to explain why you put something on, or why you wore your hair the way you did, or why you grew your nails long, or whatever. As we, as Hawaiians, were influenced through outside contact and outside belief systems and values and lifestyles and perspectives and clothing and all of the things, we started to put ourselves into categories and to put ourselves in boxes. Kanaka, we didn't do that. You had kuleana, and you had your kuleana because of, our tita Hina, she always says this: what is your kulana? What is your kuleana? And that's how you move about life, knowing your role and knowing the kuleana that comes along with that role, that kulana. And that's all that it was. That was life. And today we start to see that being māhū is not so extraordinary anymore. And not meaning that it's not special, because it absolutely is special. It's not out of the ordinary. And I think that young people today have a better sense of comfort with being able to move in and out of their feminine and masculine energies without apology. And when I was transitioning at 17, 18 years old, our aunties and my mother queen absolutely was like, you're gonna do it, you gotta do it all the way. Even my grandfather, you're gonna be like this, you better be pretty, right? You didn't have the luxury of of a beard and lashes. And now it's like the thing, it's cute. And so I really think that without knowing it, young people are much more alike our kupuna. As far as not trying to fit into some box, not trying to fit into some category, not trying to absolutely be what they feel a woman is, or absolutely be what they feel like a man is. Like it's absolutely okay and safe to be right in the middle. And that is Hawaii thinking. That is a Hawaii perspective that there's no need to find yourself on the binary spectrum and park it there and stay there and own it. Like you can absolutely be fluid. And so I hope that young people really kind of understand that it's much more in tune with the old ways. And let that be a launching point from how we can be more in tune with our kupuna ways in other areas of living.
Yeah, it's true. And I gotta admit for myself, like I feel like that old person now when people talk about pronouns and fluidity and to me it's just like, oh my God, can't we just go back to just being gay? Or can't we just go back, And I have to come to that realization to myself where, you know what, this is what we created. This is the community that we created, was for this free expression of who we are, right? And that space where judgment didn't dictate who we are, who we believe we were, right? And so now it kind of feels strange because I'm always having to correct myself with calling somebody them or they or she or he, and I'm just like, I feel like my old gay uncle, like, oh my God, you're a girl, stop it. And so it does. It's weird how that whole cycle, like that tidal force, it comes right back at you, and you just have to keep adapting to that change. How are we doing on time? We're at 4.
I would say we have 20 more minutes for just talk and then Q&A.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Of course.
So I'm the oldest person up here at 80 years old. And one of the things that I have come to realize is like, and Keiva mentioned the boxes we're not meant to be in, and taking those walls down so we can't, we don't put ourselves in boxes. And basically we put ourselves in boxes to define ourselves into existence and put other people in boxes so that we, from where we're standing, can understand what they are and the difference between them and us. As kupuna age now, one of the things I'm realizing is you are me, right? And we're all connected to each other. You're no different from me. I need you to be able to exist. I look at you and I know that I'm alive because you see me. So when I look at you, I'm like, thank you, and I love you too. No matter who you are, because you make me come alive. Right? And we cannot exist in this world without each other. I mean, think about it, Where do we get our water from, and who brings it to us? Who brings the electricity to us? Who helps us if we go to the store to purchase our food? Who brings our mail to us? Who helps to put the gas get the gas to our car? We're interrelated in so many different ways. And so we need each other, no matter who we are. And no matter if that person is a bigot, it's kind of like, I forgive you. I forgive you for thinking that way because I know that you don't know any better. I forgive you and I want to tell you that I love you. because I know you don't know any better. But you are a part of me, and I am a part of you. And being able to understand that in society means that we become very fluid like the sky, like the blue sky. You know, that's just expansive. And if we look at that and we think about that, like I am as expansive as the sky. And I can reach wherever and however it needs to be. And that other people are the same. If we can see that in each other, then we can be more collective and unified in ways that we cannot even imagine that we can be. And that's one thing. The other thing is our identities are impermanent. We're not going to last forever with that identity, and identities change. You know, it's like the ocean, the waves in and out. You know, rise and down. But things change, they're impermanent from day to day. Yesterday is gone because we're in today. Tomorrow not here yet because we're here today. I'm here now and I'm going to be gone in 2 hours. Right? Impermanence, if we can realize that, we take advantage of what is now. You know, the beautiful smile on your face. That's now, right? And that's what I appreciate now. Because that's going to be gone in a little while, because I'm going to be gone. And your smile not going to be me, except in my head, right? So it's those kinds of things, you know, as I've gotten older, that I realize now, it's like all this other stuff that we have that make us like, this is me, and this is the box that I'm in, prevents me from being able to relate to others, and being able to connect to others, and being part of others, and building community, and celebrating each other, and honoring each other, and creating these beautiful, beautiful communities that we live in. Yeah. You sitting over there. I want to tell you that I love you.
Thank you. I've got a cold, so see.
Cold or not cold, right? But it's those kinds of things, the interconnections that are very, very important. Young people are just so, so, so beautiful. I love you because you have so much more to do and so much more that you can offer to us too, right? But the interconnections in who we are and what we are, never mind the identities, because that will come and go. My history, yes, is important for me to understand where my kupuna came from, you know. But that history is like this, and your history is like this, and your history is like this, right? And we're all interconnected. And we learn from each other, not to use our histories to divide us, but to learn from each other and to connect with each other. As Haku Ho'oponopono today, one of the things I find is that we're so, when families come with their issues and their problems, a lot of times it's because of intergenerational disconnect. You know, a young person is saying, but Grandma, I sent you the text. And Grandma says, you know, you would send me this. What this? I don't know what this. When I would ask you the question, tell me what you mean. You know, that kind of stuff. It's the communication disconnects people sometimes because there's intergenerational, not just intergenerational, but people don't understand all that stuff, right? So it's kind of like understanding, how do we connect? Not disconnect, but let's connect. Let's connect with each other and find ways in which we can do that. Understanding that who we are is impermanent. We're not going to be here forever, and that our identities are also impermanent. How do we celebrate and honor and love each other? Mahalo.
I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to turn it over to you folks with any questions from any of our folks in the audience. Yes.
Can you tell us about times when you have found ways to deal with people who can't handle people who are not binary, people who are threatened, people who approach you with hate, people who don't get it? Are there any times when you've dealt with an individual or a group who approach you in that way, and have you found ways to connect with them?
I may be talking too much, but I just want to share something. When I was on the Commission for Same-Sex Marriage and the Law, one of the most outspoken persons on the commission was Mike Gabbard, who was from the religious right. Yes. So I see people rolling their eyes. So one day I went up to Mike and I just told myself, I have to love this man. I have to love this man because I cannot get through what I gotta do and help him to understand who we are unless I show him what love is. And so I went up to Mike and I said, Mike, I just want you to know that I really admire who you are. And he went. And what I mean by that, Mike, is we're on opposite sides. But one of the things I admire about you is that you believe what you're doing and you stand up for those principles. And that is a good leader. And I admire that about you. I don't agree with what you're saying, but I admire what you're doing and how you do it. And that in that, you're able to make a difference with other people. We became very good friends. I don't know if it's a man's ego or what the hell it is, but we became very good friends until today. So that's kind of like how I did it.
You know, since we're sharing Mike Gabbard's stories, I don't know very well. Yeah, I used to work Continental at Honolulu Airport, and I was training this girl. And so before then, you had boarding passes, right? So standing in line, I was like, oh no, and this was in the height of that. I see him coming up. And so I told the girl, I go, hey, move aside. So I said, next in line. So he comes up to me, he doesn't know me from Adam. So typing away, and he's like, okay, I'm going to Boston, and this. I said, oh, okay, how many bags? So while he's talking, I'm unseating him. He's like in the front. I go put him in the back by the bathroom in the middle seat. And he was like, okay, so this is the aisle seat. Yes. I said, oh, yes, sir, please have a nice shirt. So the girl looks at me, she goes, wait, I didn't learn that in training. I said, no, never mind. You know, you gotta be careful as muffies. We run all the travel industry. We run a lot of things. So gotta be careful. So after that, I had to work with Kuʻumeaaloha to center myself. But yeah, it is a very difficult thing to do. So I just had to share that. My God was like, I know this.
All right. Okay.
I think that, you know, I work around the country, and so I'm in a lot of different communities all over the country often, and around a lot of different people and personalities and perspectives. And one thing that I've really learned is that people's experiences have shaped who they are and how they think. And I always try to keep that into the back of my mind whenever I am interacting with folks. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. You know, I had the experience, I joined a national organization. I was heading this national organization and really had this expectation that I was going to be able to bridge a lot of the gaps between different communities, understanding that we were all working towards the same thing. And I was not successful. I got a lot of pushback. I got a lot of really, really rough experiences, almost traumatizing experiences, because of it. And in the midst of all of that, I still continue to try to understand that when someone crosses your path, I have no idea where they came from, what they have endured, what they have experienced, why they feel or think the way that they feel and think. And with that comes a different kind of empathy that allows me to accept them for who and what they are, no matter who and what they are. Not saying that their decisions, their behavior, their approaches are good or bad or right or wrong, but just saying like how Auntie said, like, I see you, and it is what it is. And I think a lot of us really have to practice that in this day and age and where we are with the political climate that we're in, and really kind of seeing ourselves or seeing our community come out in support of things that we would be like, oh really, I didn't know you felt like that. I didn't know that's what you were about. And we're having a lot of those light bulb moments within our own relationships, whether it be family or whether it be coworkers or whether it be our employers, whether it be our own community members. I can honestly kind of sit back and just accept how that person is. Now, how I move around them afterwards, that's a different story. But really, in order to be able to be productive and to kind of like stay in my own kind of peace, really it's about understanding that I don't understand people. And with that, I can have an empathy that allows me to step away, that allows me to forgive, that allows me to kind of move on without carrying any of that ano as I walk away from that situation. Yeah.
In Hawaiian culture, we have a terminology in Ho'oponopono, and it's called mihi, to forgive. And the forgiveness is not about the other person. That forgiveness is about you. When you forgive another person, you are letting go of your anger, your animosity, your judgment, and bringing peace and calm to yourself, and making room for you to continue to love others. And that's what mihi is all about. And think about it. Think about it. I'm angry at you for what you did, and you really hurt me. And I forgive you. Because I'm releasing. It's about me. But you don't want to tell the person that. I don't think it's about that. But anyway, that's me, and that's really important. And in Ho'oponopono, that's one of the things we strive for, is me. You never finish the session. The conflict is not resolved until you reach me. And that's really, really important.
Any other questions from the audience?
Just the phone.
Hi. I'm also a person in the diaspora, and so my dad is Kanaka, almost 100%, but I went with my mother when they divorced at age 5 to the mainland for many, many years. And I'm in my 60s now, and I'm coming back to Hawaii more and more, and I want to get more connected with the cultural traditions that you're talking about quite a bit. And so I'm curious about the organizations or how to do that.
There's so many iterations of us. I looked at that picture and I'm like, oh, Peter Silva, who was that back then? And then he became Peter Tuiolosega Silva, remember? By wearing that shirt. And then I rediscovered my Samoan family from the diaspora as well. There's so many opportunities, I feel, especially on this island, to rediscover yourself, rediscover your roots. There's many folks, through UH, Hilo, I really believe it has bred and introduced this whole accessible way of finding out about your culture or learning more about the host culture. Through Aina programs, we have some Aina folks here. We also have halal, we have Oli class. There's so many different ways that you can connect in that. Definitely stay off social media. Social media, I don't know why, it's just such a judgmental and quick to put you down kind of place, and that's not really how we interact as people of the Pacific and Kanaka. We really connect with one another. So really make that human connection and reach out to these organizations. There's Kuʻumeaaloha, there's Kumukahi. We also have programs at Kumukahi. There's halal. There's Stacy's halal. There's Pellet's halal. There's a lot of ways to discover and make connections in that, and give yourself grace in knowing that, hey, I've been gone for a really long time, and it's very difficult, to learn these words and these concepts. But people here are here to give you grace and love and aloha.
And I also think that, and welcome home too, but I also think that it's important, I learned this not too long ago, in my own halau. I've been a part of for 25 years, and they're like my family, and watched kids grow up and everything. And so it really, really is special because my family is so disconnected because we're so spread out. So it's nice to have that my hula family is really, my family. But one thing that I always have to remember is also not what am I taking, but what am I actually giving to this relationship, to what am I contributing to it. In Hawaii, we call it mama suckers. But there are a lot of them out there, and so when coming to belong, it's also not what is this circle doing for me, but also what am I doing for this circle. Yeah. And we're really privileged because I lived on Oahu for most of my life, and I've only been on Hawaii Island full-time for the last 5 years. And what I recognized about Hawaii Island and Hawaii Island people is we're learners. And there's so many culturally sound and culturally powerful people, especially on East Hawaii, especially right here in Hilo, that there's so many places to learn. Whether you're weaving, whether you're practicing hula, whether you're fishing, whatever it is that you're doing, there is really, really strong huis of people to find community with. But always remembering what am I giving to this community too.
I think that also the practice of ha'a, yeah, going into something with humility, yeah, just being really ha'a, like I'm here to learn, yeah, and how I can give is of my time, of my presence, of any kind of koko I can give back. Good question.
We had a question on this side as well.
I also had a similar question, but my family is very wrapped up in Christianity. It's generational, and I am carrying a lot of the burden of normalizing māhū in my family. And so I guess my question is, how do you avoid the burnout of being that person within your family who is bringing back the normality of māhū in a family that's not necessarily inviting for that kind of conversation? I'm just trying to show up as myself, really, but there is that level of burnout that I experience with my family, and I guess how have you handle that individually?
Well, I always remember and remind that I don't necessarily need to be an educator all the time. It's not my kuleana to sell my life or sell my values or my beliefs for the sake of someone else trying to understand me. And that's difficult when it's family, right? Because you demand a certain level of respect and safety when you're in your family space, right? So that can be complicated, but in my experience, I really had to understand that as māhū, I do have this certain kind of mana, this certain kind of energy that allows me the strength to move about relationships with my family unapologetically. And whether they understand it and receive it in that way, that's none of my business. But what I know is that acceptance looks different, and it has layers. And sometimes time can take care of those things, and then sometimes you just have to have that come to kupuna moment that, like, is this relationship really worth all of the effort or all of the mana that I have to kind of like exude to keep it, right? And it happens to every one of us that we actually have to kind of just come to that decision, like, is it worth it or is it not worth it? But yeah, we don't have to always be the educator and the teacher and the professor of all things māhū for people. And it's okay. And sometimes some people want to be, but it's okay to not be too.
Okay, we have a question right here.
Hey, how's it? I'm from Molokai originally and grew up also with, like you guys talked about, all the negative connotations that people surround māhū with. And then went to the mainland for college, came back, and I found myself in college, came back, and was kind of surprised at the differences I noticed in my experiences coming back to Molokai or South Kona rural areas versus Oahu and other very urban areas. Being on the mainland, I really found a lot of good organizing space for both pro-LGBTQ, pro-Indigenous people, and anti-colonial views in both rural and urban areas. But coming back to Hawaii, at least in my experience, I've seen a lot more acceptance and a lot more community and a lot more power in the organizing that from the conversations I've had on Molokai and Hilo and South Kona versus on Oahu, or the people that classmates I've talked to who are from there. So I'm wondering,
how have you all experienced that, and especially in organizing spaces and community creating spaces? How have your identities of both queer and as many of you have talked about, anti-colonial, how has that been reflected by urban or rural spaces?
This is the question I heard. How do we manage organizing and community in rural versus urban spaces in Hawaii?
Yeah, sorry, it was a lot. It was
Okay.
organizing and just your own, just living, being yourself in your community.
I live on Oahu, and I live in a place where has a lot of kupuna. So they're kind of like, I'm one of the oldest there. I tend to be the oldest in a lot of places. I guess I don't live a long time. Anyway, so for me, and having come through the place where Martin Luther King and all of those people were like my mentors way back then, Cesar Chavez and all of those guys, and being like really out there organizing. So now as kupuna, I'm quieter, but it doesn't mean I don't still do things. Because recently, one of the other kupuna, I was in the parking lot getting my dog into the car, and so he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I saw you was talking to Joe." And I went, "Yeah." And Joe happens to be a gay man from one of the other buildings. And I said, "Oh yeah, Joe is a really nice guy." And he goes, "Yeah, but he's a kind, eh?" And I said, "What kind?" And he goes, "You know, the kind." I said, "What kind?" He goes, "The kind." And I said, "Oh, what is that?" But it's kind of like you're doing it in a different way now, you know, but you're still doing it. You're still, you know, confronting that kind of misunderstanding and disconnect. Yeah. In terms of organizing, what I'm doing is through ho'oponopono and doing it that way. And as a haku ho'oponopono, as a loea ho'oponopono, which is a person who is skilled, and as haku, which means I help families, you know, to resolve conflicts. I do not charge anything. And the reason why I don't do that is because I firmly believe that our health practices are not for sale. It's to help people to help themselves and to find their healer within. How do I have myself as a healer connect with their healing, their healer? I call myself a healer for me, not for anybody else. I don't go around saying I'm a healer, right? I just heal myself, like everybody heals themselves, and everybody has a healer within themselves. Right? So it's that kind of connection. Right? So I'm going to stop there because I think I'm getting off track.
Sorry, go ahead.
We have one more question, and I don't want to take over our guests, but speaking of education, and I'm just gonna quickly summarize what you guys did. It was amazing, and that's why we really wanted to have you here. You paved the path for yourself. Keiva can be who she wants to be, but at the same time, you paved the path for many, many people. And I can see the young generation, and they can freely walk and hold hands, but it's still, there's a lot of work to do. And my question is this, it's more complex. A few months ago, we had an exhibition about houselessness. Big part of the exhibition was Pu'uhonua Waianae village, run by Twinkle Borch, who passed away. And the idea for the village was actually to keep kids safe. And the first year of establishment of the village, 2015, with her partner, she brought 54 kids to take care of them. And the reason I'm saying this because there is big percentage of kids who became homeless, houseless, just because of the being trans, gay, and when it comes always with education, I mean, you guys are doing amazing, you did an amazing job, but not everybody get to know about you. And of course, it's our work to find this, but it comes, we come from both places or from places that we don't know. So my question is basically, I feel that this organization still needs to do their job for next generation, but is there any way to, if you guys are reaching out to the community that actually is poor community, not educated community? Because this is so important, I believe, to have this cultural background for that. Yeah? So that's basically this kind of question that I know that Ala is working with young generation, and we have few people here who represent this organization, but I think this is big percentage of or at least percentage of people who don't have access to you guys.
I'm going to take this. Phil Russell. I am very privileged to be able to have joined back with Kumukahi Health and Wellness, partnering with them to develop a LGBTQ māhū youth program that really centers and focuses on creating or normalizing mental health awareness within young people, helping young people identify when their friends, peers are in crisis, how to manage, how to support, but also how to receive support. And so alongside Tui and his staff, and Phil Russell, Director of Harm Reduction Services there, we built this program called Kupa'a, knowledge, understanding, perseverance, action, and awareness. And it's doing all of those things. It's creating awareness of mental health needs, and that mental health mental health challenges are very common within young LGBTQ folks. It's a very serious issue that we don't look at enough. And so we created that space to be able to offer support, but also to help young people build their own toolboxes of how to support each other. And so that's one avenue that we have here, right here in East Hawaii, is the Kupa'a project. And if you want to learn more about it, you can talk to any of us from Kumukahi, and we'd be happy to share. But we have some events coming up that's going to really be able to interact more with young people and really give them tools to be able to take care of each other.
Thank you.
That's one.
One more than nothing.
Oh, and then there's Kuʻumeaaloha as well, which is the LGBT community center. It's very Kanaka based, and we can really use a lot of support in making sure that that kind of platform or space is available to us. There's a lot of LGBT centers in communities all over, and many times they're not centered around culture, and they're not centered around the needs of young Kanaka. And so whenever there are spaces like Kuʻumeaaloha, like Kumukahi Health and Wellness, organizations that really try to address the needs of community, but also do it in really culturally based Kanaka sound ways, I think it's really important that we lift those up.
Any other questions? Yes.
Aloha, I'm Lila. I was really moved by your panel. It was amazing to hear what you have to say. I have a kind of question or extension on impermanence. I think that really hit me as a young queer person, kind of like navigating change through my identity. And I would love to hear more about each one of you and just impermanence in your lives, or yeah, that's my question.
So one of the things for me around impermanence is that I know that I will die eventually, and the acceptance of that I'm not permanent. And to accept that, recently my mo'opuna, my grandson, he and I were talking, and he said to me, Tutu, when you die, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say that word. And I said, why aren't you supposed to say that word? And he goes, because it's not a nice word to use. And I said, it's an okay word to use. And I said, because Tutu will die eventually. And it's okay, we all have to die. And he looked at me and I said, the tree outside, the leaves that you see on the ground, those die, they come out of the tree and they die. And then there's new leaves that come on the tree. And so we die because we make space for other people, you know? So I've accepted the fact that I am impermanent. I don't exist forever, and that I will die. So that's form of that. The other thing that I realize is that when I hold on to identity, it often causes a lot of suffering. Because kind of like, I hold on to these so much that I make me separate from everybody else. And that becomes the important thing, right? Rather than being fluid and being connected to each other. How many of you have heard of the Walk for Peace? Right? Some of us have been following it on YouTube, the monks who are marching from Fort Worth, Texas, all the way to Washington, D.C. Well, we are sponsoring a Walk for Peace. And the way that we're doing it, and I'm talking about our Ho'oponopono, our Ho'oponopono group, Kapakahi Kaia'u. And what we're doing is Hawaii People's Fund has agreed to fund us purchasing t-shirts that we will give out to people across Hawaii who are willing to walk for peace. And the way that we're going to do this is we're selecting a particular day in February and a particular time. And whether it's walking with your organization, walking with your families, walking with your community, whatever, but on that day, at that particular time, we're all walking for peace. And the amount of time that we want to walk, to be able to promote loving kindness, compassion, peace, safety, and no fear. And what we want to do is we want to raise consciousness by walking for peace. And raising, we cannot be on the continent, but we can do it here. Right? And we can say to our other communities out there, we are walking, and we're walking for loving kindness, for peace, for love, for interconnectedness. Okay. So if you're interested, you can see me afterwards, and I'll give you the contact information. And all you gotta do is just organize amongst yourselves, even if it's like a group of you, and let us know what your shirt sizes are, and we will send it to you. And it's no charge. Okay.
Any of the other panelists want to say anything about the question on impermanence?
Impermanence. Oh man. I look back at all of the different iterations of who I was and where I was and what I've created. And I love that those pictures down below of the creative force that artist brought in all the different ways of portraying their identity, portraying different people of their community. So, it's kind of like speaking to you, like, what the heck am I doing in this rural area of life, or why was I put in this spot? And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've made a lot of great things and creative programs, and I've uplifted people, and I've let people down. It's kind of like how you just have to accept who you are and where you are and give yourself kindness, right? As to figuring out, why am I in this space right here? Because in 24 hours and 48 hours, it's gonna be a different Tuli, right? And how did I make my mark, or what was my purpose in there? And in that moment, I can try and figure out the reason, but I really find that looking back, I see why I was there. And so, I don't know. That's a really difficult question. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming here and just learning more. And you folks are all on a journey of your own life and all the struggles that you face and where you come from. And so hearing from us, we really sincerely appreciate that you came here and did that. And we could learn so much more from you, but it's exactly as Kuʻumeaaloha said. It's like seeing each other. I can't be seen unless you see me, and vice versa. So thank you for the space and time, and we'll see where we'll be in the future.
I think one of the greatest things about getting older is the wisdom that comes along with it. And so be patient, because you will get a lot of wisdom as you go through your own life experiences. But as a trans woman, as māhū, I always felt like after I transitioned, that little boy, I couldn't have any parts of that little boy. That little Christopher, who was growing up in Richmond, California, with a big brother and a dog, and who loved to ride bike up and down the driveway and all of those things, right? And as I've gotten older, I realized it's okay to embrace that little boy that I used to be. That it's okay to have to share memories of him, and to lift up all of the things that was cute about me when I was little. And I think as a young trans girl who was trying to be the prettiest girl, who was trying to be the dolly, who was trying to be all of these things, a lot of us reject that, those identities. I think I did myself a disservice by kind of ignoring that little boy who was talented and who was great and who was fun and all of those things. And so I think when it comes to impermanence, it's really understanding that we are always going to be ever evolving. Every experience, even this one right here, we are taking things from this conversation that we've been having together, and it's making us a different person in many ways. You guys are going to carry little nuggets and tidbits of things that we talked about today, and it's going to change the way that you approach something, or you talk about something, or you interact with someone. And so I think learning through age and through wisdom, learning how to grasp onto those things that are very meaningful to you as a person personally, and learning how to covet them and making sure that I'm along with that part of it, because I really, really like this part of me or life or learning or whatever. And also learning how to kiloi all of the things that do me no good. all of those things that serve me no purpose. And I think we learn that over time as people learn how to malama those things that are treasured to us, to our personality, and to our interaction with the world, but also learning how to let go of the things about me that have let people down, that have disappointed my family, that have disappointed me, or that have made me shame, or all of those things. Learning how I can let go of that stuff because it has no value to me. And so that part of ever changing and ever evolving is just knowing what that looks like for each individual person.
And thank you for saying that, because the other important part is loving the person I don't like. Loving the me I don't like. Being able to say, I forgive you. I forgive you for hurting me, hurting the little girl inside of me. And I know you won't do it again, right? But being able to say to yourself, I forgive me for the wrong I did. Because it's not me, it's that behavior, right? And letting go of the behavior, but loving you. Just keep loving you, because you are love. You come from love. You are love, and you project love. And if we all got that, we would have a much more beautiful world. And one of the things that we can all be peace warriors by saying, I love you. Go home, look in the mirror. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said,
Oh, Nancy.
I love you? I'm just saying, I love you. I get up in the morning, and after I meditate and I'm brushing my teeth, and I stop and I smile and I go, I love you. I really love you. Right? And being able to do that every single day. Because when you can do that, you open up that space of love within you. And then you can go out into the world and just project that to other people.
Thank you. I hope that answered your question. Are we pretty much, okay, we're pretty much done. So I just want to just malo apito, malo tu'aofatu to our panel today for coming and sharing your wisdom, sharing your mana'o, and really being able to bring the light of this exhibition that Andre and his team have been working on for many months. It almost didn't happen, and I'm really happy that it did happen. And you folks are the proof that this was needed. Just my final thoughts. I was asking the same questions when I was younger as well. And I would never have thought that 30, 35 years later, I'd be sitting here talking about my life experience and having folks that I grew up with talking about their life experience, and never even realizing that what I went through actually could impact somebody else's life. I love being an uncle. We have one Hanai son, but I have lots of nieces and nephews, and I think for me, knowing that they have a gay uncle that loves them, gay emotion, is my new identity in life, right? Because my parents were very religious, and we didn't really grow up around that type of loving nature. So for me, whether my nieces and nephews or whoever they decide to be in life, but if I can change their idea of what a gay, bisexual, trans, māhū person is in their head, and they always think, no, that's not my uncle. My uncle isn't like that. Then that's my role right now. That's my identity right now in life, and I love it. I love being an uncle. So, so I just want to thank you all again. Just going to reread, the passage that I actually wrote. I didn't realize how relevant it would have been. But there's wisdom in being present at the right moment, learning by moving alongside those who already know the rhythm. So, mahalo for being our choreographers of life, and to our future choreographers. Mahalo.